This is Fearless Broadcasting News for February 19, 2010, brought to you by members of 12160.org. I'm Harry Thomas. This come out of PrisonPlanet.com by Paul Joseph Watson. Frightening taste of internet censorship as major free speech websites blocked. With influential proponents recently calling for a newly regulated World Wide Web, we got a preview of how that might look this past weekend after both Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com were completely blocked to many internet users in New Zealand. It is important to stress that we receive emails on a weekly basis informing us that our websites have been blocked as hate speech or offensive material. At internet cafes, libraries, transport hubs, workplaces, and numerous other buildings, not only in the United States but across the world. The censorship is being done at the ISP level, so whereas some people in a particular country will have access and others will be blocked. In 2007, MySpace admitted their policy to censor and filter out posts containing links to PrisonPlanet.com website, adding that MySpace server automatically blocks such information. The social networking giant, as well as others like Facebook, periodically block links to Alex Jones material and will only revoke such filters when people complain. And many of you might remember an example of this was when the Alex Jones channel was suspended at YouTube. It was taken right down and there was a huge outcry and they put it back up. A UK ISP has also blocked the websites following the 7/7 London bombings in 2005. The Infowars social network was also blocked by libraries in the US in 2008 using SafeSquid and Google filtering software. And the Infowars social network that used to exist, many people have moved to a new social network at 12160.org. It says here, the move to impose centralized government control and regulation for free internet has accelerated over the past 12 months. Last week, Time magazine enthusiastically jumped on the bandwagon to back Microsoft executive Craig Mundy's call for internet licensing, as authorities push for a system even more stifling than in communist China, where only people with government permission would be allowed to express free speech. During a recent conference at the Davos Economic Forum Monday, a chief research and strategy officer for Microsoft told fellow globalists at the summit that the internet needed to be policed by means of introducing licenses similar to driver's licenses, in other words, government permission to use the web. Internet censorship bills currently working their way into law in the UK, Australia, and the US legislate for government powers to restrict and filter any website that it deems undesirable for public consumption. In Italy, new rules to be imposed by government decree force anyone who wishes to upload a video to the web get permission from the government's communications ministry. Power brokers in the White House have openly declared war on free speech and targeted internet conspiracy theorists as the main threat to their agenda. In 2008, white paper Obama regulation czar Cass Sunstein called for a government to tax or even ban outright political opinions of which it disapproved. That means that the government might ban conspiracy theorizing, and government might impose some kind of tax, financial or otherwise, on those who disseminate such theories. I mean, this is really, really maddening. It's really a threat to our First Amendment. Internet censorship alert. Alex Jones exposes agenda to blacklist dissenting sites and licensed users. This come out of Infowars.com. Says here, with Obama's support, most of the developed world has accepted plans for government-approved online activity and Pentagon-monitored internet traffic. The U.S. and U.K. are facilitating the hijacking of what has until now been a highly democratic internet. Overall, it has been a technological godsend for bringing together communication and strengthening expressing thoughts outside the mainstream information available on the television and in print. Now people are being forced onto a corporate-dominated internet too, once again in the name of security. Internet freedom sacrificed at the false altar of internet security. Independent blogs, news sites, and online businesses will all be financially disadvantaged by access fees not demanded of dominant entities. What is today outside the norm might well, within free speech, tomorrow be evaluated by political correct criteria that will be used to identify sites to block users and deny access. Currently, a campaign is underway to convince the public to accept driver's licenses for a once free internet. I mean, this is really getting bad, and there's all kinds of links exposing this internet agenda. Just Google Internet Censorship Alert, Alex Jones exposes agenda to the blacklist. There's tons of links to it and everything else. Now, this come out of The Age. Google, Australian government, could censor political YouTube videos. Google says it will not voluntarily comply with the government's request that it censor YouTube videos in accordance with broad refused classification (RC) content rules. University of Sydney Associate Professor Board Landfeld, one of Australia's top communication experts, says that to comply with Convoy's request, Google would have to install a filter along the lines of what they actually have in China. And if you don't know what's going on in China, they have an internet censoring filter, totally knocking out anything that the government does not want the people to hear or see. As it prepares to introduce legislation within weeks forcing ISPs to block a blacklist of RC websites, the government says it is in talks with Google over blocking the same type of material from YouTube. It says here, internet censorship protest shuts down Australian government websites. This was in direct response to what they were doing right here. Hackers protesting government censorship of the internet have shut down several Australian government websites in a demonstration against the announcement that filters would be imposed to block access to websites deemed offensive by authorities. The campaign was launched by an anti-Scientology group, Anonymous, in response to plans to implement a mandatory and wide-ranging internet filter modeled on that of the communist Chinese government. The Australian government attacked the campaign as not a legitimate form of political statement. Despite the Australian government promising the internet filter would only be used to block access to child pornography and illegal websites, the watchdog group Electronic Frontiers Australia warned that the law will also allow the government to block any website it desires under a vague definition. And that's how they always promote this stuff. They say they're going to go after rapists and child molesters and pornographers and all this other stuff. And then they have these broad definitions like they do on terrorism. And they can actually go after anybody. So they sell it to the public in one way, but really it's set up, and eventually they're just going to come after you and your co-workers and your neighbors and everybody else. Calls to mandate internet users to obtain licenses. Remember, they were introduced at the Davos Economic Forum. And Microsoft's pushing this. As we have highlighted before, and Bill Gates, they're globalists. Microsoft is a globalist organization. The merits of hacking a form of protest can be debated, which seems certain to happen is that governments will launch false flag cyber attacks, which will cause major catastrophe and then be blamed on free internet, adding as a pretext to tighten the screws in the plans for a centralized regulation and censorship, which are already in place. And we've already seen these kind of attacks before, where they are using cyber attacks to push this agenda. And that's what they do. We'll start seeing a series of these as they push this internet agenda. So we've got to keep our eyes on it. But also, right now, we do have a good chance to stop this, or at least slow it down enough so that we can continue to use the internet to wake the people up to this new world order madness, this one world takeover, this dictatorship of one world government. And the elite's been pushing this for a very long time. They need to be stopped. And, I want to thank you for listening to this Fearless Broadcasting News. Please join us today over at 12160.org, because together we will defeat the New World Order.